The Doors. Hi everybody, Zach Mitchell here. I have been asked to do a discography review of one of the best rock bands of all time, The Doors. And The Doors are certainly, without a doubt, the band that made me start to love rock and roll. They were the first rock and roll band that I really got into, that I first started falling in love with, and really kind of started my love for music. So I owe The Doors a lot, and I have every single one of their studio albums. So let's get started. I will be showing you all of the albums that I have. I will be rating them from 1 to 10, and I will be giving you my favorite song on the album. So let's get started. I have the Perception box. Whoops, that's not it. This is it. I have the Doors Perception box set, which features all of their studio albums. So let's get started. Their first album, The Doors, which is about as good as it gets. Just kidding. Definitely an amazing debut album for this band. I would give this a solid 10 out of 10. My favorite song on this album is probably The End. And I'm not talking about the Apocalypse Now movie soundtrack edited version. I'm talking about the full-on 11 minutes and 38 seconds version, where, you know, from the beginning, where he is just singing his heart out, and then right at the end where he's going, yeah, I'm not going to say it, but of course you know what I'm talking about here. So, their first album, The Doors. Awesome. Their second album, Strange Days. A great follow-up. And I would give this album a solid 10 out of 10 also. My favorite song on it is probably When the Music Is Over. Great album. Then came Waiting for the Sun, which a lot of fans were a little disappointed with, but I loved it. I think it's just as good as their first two. I would give this a solid 9 out of 10. My favorite song on it, I would have to say the song that was never actually included on the original vinyl, but they did include it on this reissue, and it is The Celebration of the Lizard, which is about a 17-minute album cut of mostly Jim's poetry, and then they go into a little bit of a jam with Not to Touch the Earth and some other stuff, but it's an amazing song. But for the actual, if you want to get technical and make me tell you an actual favorite song from the original album, I would say that it would be probably Spanish Caravan. I love that song. Next came the album that probably most fans were disappointed with, but I, of course, loved it. The Soft Parade. Very, very different from their original stuff, but again, I loved it. Jim was tripping on acid when he made this, so I would have to say that my favorite song on it is Touch Me. It's an amazing album. Oh, I'm sorry. I would give this a solid 8 out of 10, probably. Next, Morrison Hotel. Awesome. Awesome album. I love this picture here. Amazing album. I would say my favorite song is Roadhouse Blues. Although Peace Frog is a very close second. And I would give this album a solid 9 out of 10. And next came possibly their most popular album, and definitely my favorite. Their final studio album, L.A. Woman. Released, I think, about 2 years before Jim's death. I'm not quite sure, I'm not quite positive. If I'm wrong, let me know. But they after a series of commercial flops with their past studio albums, they decided to go back to their original roots, the blues, and Bruce Botnick produced this rather than Paul Rothchild, who produced their previous 5 albums. And I would say that my favorite song on this is either the title track, L.A. Woman, or The Changeling. Love that song too. Although, Love Her Madly is awesome too. And so's The Wasp. And I really like Riders on the Storm. The song Cars Hiss By My Window is good, but sometimes I feel like it drags on a little bit. And L'America is a great song too. Love this album. I would give this one a solid 10 out of 10. And they also came out with a live album back in the day. It's called The Doors Absolutely Live, and it's definitely in my top 10 favorite live albums of all time. They actually do that song Celebration of the Lizard that I mentioned before that was never commercially released on the original vinyl. And they also do a killer version of When the Music's Over. And what else do they do that I really love? They do a little medley of the Alabama Whiskey Song and Backdoor Man and 5 to 1, which is awesome too. So I would give this album a solid 10 out of 10 as well. Then Jim went off to Paris. He quit the band before his tragic death, and he made a poetry album of his own with music from the Doors. So this isn't exactly a Doors album, but I always throw this in there with the Doors. And it is Jim Morrison, An American Prayer. I almost said An American in Paris. No, An American Prayer. Music by the Doors. And it's basically just Jim sitting in a studio. Sitting in a studio. Nailed it. Sitting in a studio, reciting some of his poetry to some music by the Doors, and it's really, really good. I think myself. My favorite song is probably The Severed Garden. I would give this album a 8 out of 10. Now, this album was never officially released as a live album. It's just a live bootleg, but this is probably my favorite of the live bootlegs, and it is The Doors live in Vancouver, 1970. The sound quality isn't as good as The Doors Absolutely Live, but it's still a good album. It's still a good live album. And my favorite song on it is probably Light My Fire. And I also have The Very Best of the Doors, which is just the very best, obviously. So the Doors are definitely one of my favorite, if not my all-time favorite, rock and roll bands. I would say that my top 10 favorite Doors songs are L.A. Woman, The End. This is going for, I'm sorry, I'll start over and I'll give you my top 10 here. Number 10 would be Soul Kitchen. Number 9 would be Touch Me. Number 8 would be People Are Strange. Number 7 would be, let me think about that. Would probably have to be Break On Through to the Other Side. Number 6 would be The Unknown Soldier. Number 5 The Changeling. Number 4 would be... Hold on. Number 4 would be... Oh, Love Me Two Times. Love that song. Number 3 would be... Roadhouse Blues. Number 2 would be The End, and number 1 would be LA Woman. So there you have it. That is my discography of the Doors. List me some of your favorite Doors songs and what your favorite Doors album is in the comment section below. Remember to thumbs up this video, and until then, I will see you next time. Thank you for watching. I'm Zach Mitchell.